which is nice. Be aware, folks, that if you have a headache, it may actually not be like because of your head. It may actually be that your neck is locked up and limiting the amount of oxygen to your brain. And there are exercises for that. So yeah. What F? Twitch. I was going to say, my internet is godlike now. You have a troublesome squirrel that taunts the cats. Oh yeah, like seriously, Critico. Like I've almost got her trained now, where when I see mice or rats out there, we both will kind of creep up to the screen, and she'll wait, and then I'll be like, "Get him!" And she just goes, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Eventually, they'll like. Some of them have stopped coming, so I can't do it all the time. Of course, it's pretty safe for them at night, but yeah, so. Yeah, no screens have yet been damaged, but I'm trying to teach her to wait. I'm teaching her she can have fun and run around and chase the squirrels, but Twitch, I'm fine. My connectivity is fine. I have the best internet on the planet now. Now I can really get like annoyed at Twitch instead of annoyed at Comcast. It never ends. So yeah. So that's where we are. We're training Kiki to be a squirrel repellent. I did get some when I got my suet. I got 2 new bird feeders yesterday, Kerniko, because I went to the wild bird store, which is 20 minutes each way. So it was a little bit of a drive to get up to Redwood City, but it was a really nice bird store, and the lady there was really knowledgeable and helpful because it was just her little little nook, like this little nook of a store. It was really funny. I couldn't even see it. I had to be on top of it before I saw it. Hi, Nomad Zeke. 46 months. Nice. Yeah, it's only Thursday. That's okay. That's all right. Oh, wow. Face off against a cat. Yeah, I'm sorry, Tarzan. I'm not sure what Twitch is doing today. I actually have brand new internet this week, which should be perfect. Because we have fiber optic now. Yeah, we went to big leagues. So, because I got sick of my terrible upload and my and you know what's funny, Quindy? Right before we switched, I think this might have made up David's mind, but right before we switched, we actually got an email from Comcast saying that, oh, we know that a lot of customers have been having a lot of problems with, outages and bad performance from this line of modems. And so we'll just get around to doing a software update. Yeah, nope. Thank you. 2 months, 2 baby months with Prime. Awesome, Tarzan. Awesome. It's the beginning. Yeah, I had Fios in my old house in Texas, and I've experienced Comcast in several locations and if I have the option for Fios, I'd always rather Fios. Yeah. Well, the cool thing is that this store actually carries the brand that I like, which is made in Wisconsin. It's a little company that is owner owned in Wisconsin called Bird's Pride, or Bird's Choice. And I'm from Wisconsin. So I get to support a Wisconsin company by buying their products. And as it turns out, this store had a lot of their stuff, a lot of their stuff. So I was super happy. So I got I got a Niger seed feeder, a thistle feeder, and I got a double suet feeder. That's really cute. It's like a little greenhouse. It's adorable. It's wood, repurposed wood. And it's great. Nice. Welcome to the hobby, Tarzan. It's an awesome hobby. Super fantastic. Yeah, I don't think we have a wildlife sanctuary that sells stuff like that. Yeah, right, Quindy. We know our service is bad. Maybe it's your fault. Yeah. Yeah, I really hey, I have a picture. Oh, my yard is starting to look like a proper bird sanctuary now. Although this doesn't show the fountain and the bird bath. But here is my lemon tree. This is my back. This is right where I can see out my windows. So I'm sitting inside and I have floor to ceiling windows. So yeah. So there we are. And there's our little table, which right now has pepper plants that I need to repot. But yeah, so they're hung right off of we have a pergola over the patio, and so The suet feeders hung off of the end of the pergola, and then the thistle feeder and the squirrel buster are hung off of the lemon tree. And I will say that the squirrel buster has done a great job. Like, squirrels cannot get into it. So the squirrel can only come and try to get nuts that the birds have thrown out. So yeah, and then we just put in, I got the Japanese maple we just put in because the lime tree used to be over here. But now we've got a little really fine lace leaf Japanese maple that also gives them some cover. And there's a little bird bath down here. And then my fountain is over next to the maple. So yeah, we're building it out. The maple is probably, I don't know, it'll have to grow out a bit before it's good cover. But yeah, but the lemon tree they love. So, and then there's hedges on either side. So they've got a lot of good stuff. And our lemon tree is very vigorous. So as you can see from all the freaking lemons that I need to pick. But yeah, that's our setup now. But yeah, the store was nice. Here's a shot of the inside of the store. I was taking a picture to show my mom because she actually works with the Bluebird, Audubon's Bluebird count. I think it's Audubon who does it. But they look inside the nests and they count the number of babies and eggs and stuff. So yeah, but this is the store. So it had a lot of nice windows and a lot of cool. It was really pretty. It had all sorts of neat stuff. It was a cool store. I will go back, even though it's a bit of a drive. Alrighty. Yeah, well, it's because we've got so much rain in the spring, Kroniko. So essentially, the more water that tree gets, the more lemons it just pops out. I was thinking about it. No, I don't do a hummingbird feeder chibi because I know that there's lots of people. Like, I see a lot of hummingbird feeders around, and we also have hummingbird flowers. We get one every once in a while, but I feel like there's one person whose whole front tree is just festooned with feeders. So I figured I don't like the fact that they attract bees also, and also that just you have to clean them a lot. And I didn't want anything that high maintenance. Whereas in our current relative climate, like my bird seed feeders can go probably a week or two without me changing out the seed. The seed's still good. We do, but I don't, and I might get an Oriole feeder. Especially because our front orange tree is growing lots of oranges right now. Like, it has tiny little green globes. So if I can get in enough water, we'll have a lot of citrus. And I think they like citrus, don't they? Yeah, once a week there. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to balance because I have this thing that I learned about myself when I had 4 dogs and a cat. And an now ex-husband. But there's a limit as to how many living things I can be taking care of and responsible for, like, without feeling really stressed. And so it's like, I like the birds because I can just set the bird feeders up and then I can just ignore it for like a week or two. So anything that piles more chores onto the bird side is actually, there will be a point where it won't be enjoyable, and I don't want that point to come. So I just want to keep it small and pretty low maintenance right now. Yeah. Oh, the grape jelly. Yeah. I've seen the feeders. I haven't actually seen an Oriole. I've seen a bluebird down at the park, but I haven't seen an Oriole. So I don't know how common they are around here. So I'm just gonna, although my brush jay, of course, yesterday, this is the funny thing, Kroniko, remember my big bluebird, my brush jay? So my favorite. Of course, all the stuff I bought was for little birds again, because I didn't buy the big bird feeder, the fly-through one with the mesh where the jays can actually find it easier to eat and sit, because it was like expensive. So I didn't buy it, and sure enough, yesterday the stupid brush jay comes back, and I've got nowhere for him to sit. Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess if you really set up for hummingbirds, you could. And that's funny, too, because they're territorial little buggers. But I bet on their migration, they're maybe a little less territorial, right? If they want to. I don't know if they migrate together. I don't know if they flock, so to speak, right? But I can see on migration, they'd be more tolerant of other birds near them, because they wouldn't necessarily have a territory that they'd settled into. But they are really territorial little buggers. So it's amazing that he can get away with that. But I wonder does he have a really big like yard or property? Because that would make sense if that's your hobby. I do love the hummers. But for now I get to see them on my walks, and that's enough for me. Yeah, I've heard woodpeckers in our area, and I'm hoping that eventually they'll discover our suet feeder. Yeah, and I also got one of my suet cakes is insects, so I might get starlings. Yeah. Peanuts in the shell in random places up off the ground. His house is covered in feeders. That's funny. All right, well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about painting while we talk about birdies. I need to figure out my lightest color here. I think I'm going to block in my lights. I'm thinking again about not putting light down here, but I may go with it to try it out. I may do light leggings, just not as light. So we're going to use that boggard green and that Osirian sand color. And I'm going to grab some leaf bud for... maybe I'll grab my... Okay, so this is where we have to mix it up, right? Like, I want to do a light color here, here. I want to alternate, right? And I need to shade that light color because this is not dark enough. I could highlight this up to white, but it's not dark enough to really look like it has a shadow, right? So when you're looking at my transition chart here, you could reach for the leaf bud green, but this is where you can kind of choose to change it up, and I probably would. Because I want my shadows to be more grayed out and not as intense, this is where I would mix this color, but then grab some of the 9082 and mix that in and essentially jump over the leaf bud. And the other reason to do that is the leaf bud green is right up against these areas. And so using that color as a shadow isn't going to be as successful in separating, making this guy's areas stand out from each other. And that, of course, is our primary goal in mini painting. Oh gosh, Gary Michael. Yeah, I know how that can be. How funny. Yeah, I don't know if I want starlings, but mostly I just want a variety of birds. My nuthatches, my baby pygmy nuthatches are back, which I adore them. So if you've never seen a nuthatch or these nuthatches, they're like imagine a chickadee, which is normally a big round bird, and then like kind of flatten it, make it more aerodynamic. A skinny chickadee with a long beak. And it was funny because they're the most curious things. I put up those feeders yesterday. Within half an hour, the nuthatch was investigating. Like, had to land on all of the things and peck at everything. They're such curious little things. I think the nuthatches might be my favorite. Like, if I had to pick a favorite child at this point. Let's see. No, I don't want pine green. I want my jungle moss. Jungle moss. There we are. Yeah, it is. It's like a flattened aerodynamic chickadee. And it's like, that's why I thought they were chickadees at first, because one of them is a little bit bigger and fatter. But then I looked at pictures consistently and I was just like, no, it's not right. Ah, okay. Well, we'll see. The suet is also for the woodpeckers, so. And I know we have woodpeckers around here because I hear them pretty regularly. So hopefully they discover their treats. But yeah, it's all just a waiting game, You put out your feeders, you hope the birds kind of discover it. I do want to get a big fly-through feeder. But actually, since I bought over $100, bad me, but it was my birthday! Excuse! Since I bought over $100 worth of stuff, I actually got a coupon card for 15% off an item. So I may just kind of have to save money up for that big fly-through bird feeder for the Jay and the other biggies. And then I can put out, because I have a seed and nut mix one that's fruit and nut mix that's got like whole peanuts in it, deshelled. And they're too big for most of the other birds, although I will see Mr. Nuthatch every once in a while try to hold one between his toes and eat it slowly. All right, so we're going to do a half and half. We're going to do a half and half boggard green and Osirian sand. And then we're going to, our shadow will be built off of adding just a little bit of jungle moss to that. Yeah. David came home and gave me a look and he's like, I thought you bought $40K for your birthday. And I'm like, my second birthday present? Maybe my third birthday present? Did he totally miss the part where I was adapting my mother's philosophy that the older you get and the more birthday days you get? Like, did he miss that? Because it's a thing. I'm officially making that a thing. The older you get, the more days of birthday presents you get. Like, that is the deal. I think that needs to totally be a thing. Because I know too many older people who are just like, I don't even observe birthdays anymore. And it's like, no, you should be embracing your birthday power. Embrace your birthday power. Awesome, Quindy. You're already there, Quindy. You're already there. You've got the right mindset. My mom was like, yeah, I had 2 weeks of birthdays this past year. I'm like, I love you, Mom. My mom is so funny. I get my sense of humor from my mom, so just so you guys know. If you ever wondered where it came from, my brother even remarked on it at the wedding. He's like, you have that way that Mom has of always turning everything into a joke. And I'm like, yup, no matter how dire it is. I was making jokes when I was getting wheeled into surgery. Yeah, exactly. 29 zits. 39 zits. 49 zits. Well, now I'm at 51 zits, so, you know. Alrighty. Still irrelevant, though. Damn it, here I am on Twitch. Yay. I'm going to stay relevant. I'm going to be relevant in my 80s. I did do one work thing yesterday, if you can call it work. I did work on another chapter for toward finishing the book. I partially wrote it and outlined all of it, so because I'm so close, folks, it's like 3 chapters left. So Jungle Moss is actually, as you can see, pretty saturated. Like, pretty bright, actually, all things considered. So it's not gonna really, it'll gray out a little bit. You see, we actually have gotten a color that's a lot like Pale Lichen, although it's a bit darker, which is the highlight of the Moss Triad. But that's a good shadow for this. Like, you can see that it's dark enough to be an effective shadow. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to start with that. Now, this is the question mark. And actually, maybe I won't start with that. You do like presents. That's why you buy yourself presents. You give yourself the best presents anyway. 2 feeders worth of sunflower hearts a day. Wow. Yeah, I've got a goldfinch investigated us but didn't stay. So we'll see if we can encourage the goldfinches to start coming. Mostly I'm experimenting with different feeds in my squirrel buster. But I'm all right, so that's really light, but that's what I wanted. See, because you can see it, right? It's drama. It stands out. So I'm gonna pop in some of this shadow color. And the shadow may be light enough to stand out against the leaf bud, especially once I put a nice dark shadow in this in the recesses here where the sleeve is, you know, the inside of the sleeve. I need to paint this darker, and that'll make the sleeve look lighter. Hey, Slayer. Hey, Kodiak. You also get upset if people don't care about your birthday, but also don't want them to. Oh my gosh. Funny, funny, funny. Oh, Lordy. Quindy, you are a cat. It's official. That's such a cat thing. The whole, I will be offended if you do not give me pettins. No, I do not want pettins right now. Quindy officially. And since you're a goth, I have to like get this image in my mind of Quindy, if she was a cat, of being like one of those svelte black aloof cats who are kind of like mini panthers, but very regal. Very, 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 very that. Very that. Headcanon accepted. But yes, that's totally cat. So when dealing with Quindy, if you simply keep the catliness factor in mind, you should be okay. So does Buglips know that he's with the Queen of the Cats? Like that his SO is actually secretly the Queen of the Cats? You guys know that story, right? Although it's actually the King of the Cats. So this is a tiny little folktale. It's a tiny little fragment of folktale. It shows up in various ethnicities. It's actually one that I'm going to be working with and expanding on in one of my future books. But I've always loved it. And essentially, the story goes that a traveler comes by into the main character doesn't even have a name. It just varies, as with most folktales. But a traveler stops by somebody's house and is like, I was on this journey and this weird spirit came up and it said, tell Rumpelstilts that Blurgerberg said that so-and-so is dead. And the punchline, because it really is that tiny of a story, is that the house cat by the hearth jumps up, looks around, says, that I am the king of the cats, and like runs out of the room. Like, so it's like the king of the cats story. And I've always loved it just because of it hints at so much more folklore that nobody ever went and like actually built out, right? And so I'm going to build some out. I've always wanted to expand on the King of the Cats. And actually, if you recall, if you are ancient with D&D, as I am, you may recall that the King of the Cats was actually a D&D character created by Gary Gygax. The D&D version of it, anyway. For his Gord the Rogue series of books, novels, which I used to love as a kid. And he actually did have D&D stats at one point in one of the expansion books. I don't remember. But so that just lodged it even more. Don't come up and pet me. Well, of course, because you're like the totally like no pet zone. That's what you need a sign at your area, Quindy. Yes, I am a cat. This is a no pet zone. Yes, the story. But yeah, so the King of the Cats story is pretty cool, and I've always liked it. Because I'm like, but what happened? And like where does the King of Cats live? And what's involved in being the King of Cats anyway? And how annoying would it be to be the King of the Cats? And of course, if you read Girl Genius, you know that there is also a King of the Cats character in there. So it is a thing that has caught on in people's heads. Various creatives and writers' heads. And people have done their little riffs on it. I need to do one because I've always loved it. Hello, M. Fontana. 45 months. Dang. Only 3 left to go to your quadruple subversary. So yeah, I've decided that base coating in the darker color is actually, and this is what I prefer to do with really light tones, guys. Even though it doesn't stand out well as itself against the leaf bud green, once I add the highlights, it does, so. Gmail is piling on notifications. What is it, Gmail? What is it? Is it really that important? I don't really want to open you. I just want to see what your silly thing is. No, it's not going to tell me. It just says there's notifications. Well, screw you, Gmail. Go away. Quit pinging at me. But yeah, especially since I have Animal Kings in my books already, and I have only delved into a couple of them. Well, I've only really delved into, like, one and hinted at a couple more. So obviously there must be a King of the Cats. And a Queen of the Cats. I'll figure that out. I promise I won't name my Queen of the Cats Quindy, though. I don't want to infringe on your IP, Quindy. Plus, it's too close. There's actually only one character in my books who ended up being kind of indirectly based on someone I know. Like, just, I think it's the reason for that person's personality, like, is because I have known this person this other person for so long, and it just worked its way. That personality just worked its way into this character. But otherwise, I actually don't ever consciously draw upon people I know. Like, no bets about subconscious, but if so, I'm not consciously aware of it. Like, I couldn't point at that character and say, oh yeah, this kind of reminds me of so-and-so who I know or knew. Okay, that's a bracer, so I don't want that. That's true. That's why it's such a tough job being the king of the cats or the queen of the cats. Every cat is liable to look at you and go, really? I'm going to thin down my base color here. I will take this up to an off-white. I'll probably take it up to Osirian Sand plus white. It looks very much like white as it is, though. Well, I mean, everybody, and that's why you have that disclaimer, you know, like any resemblance to actual persons living or dead, blah, blah, blah. But it's a little bit better when you're writing fantasy, because obviously whatever else that character is, that person is, they are not actually the king of the hyenas or whatever. But yeah, I mean, every writer draws off of their experience of people, like human experience, right? So it's inevitable that, like, personality traits that you choose for some characters may be personality traits that you have observed in people that you know. Just because, you know, when you're writing characters, you tend to write what you know. But I think most writers don't do it consciously. Unless, of course, they've had one of those Kickstarter goals where, you know, sub to this level and I'll base a character on you, right? Some people have done that. Uh-oh, I see a little bit of flash. I've got to get on his boot. Yeah. So I keep asking people, my favorite question, like, to add, that I thought would be my favorite question to ask people who read my books, is actually become my actual favorite question, because the answers are always so different. So I like to ask people who their favorite character is, or characters, and there is a wide variety of responses, which makes me happy, because it tells me that all my characters are quite different, and that everybody's got a favorite, and they're different. Oh, cool, Arrow is! Yay! I hope you enjoy it. Thank you for ordering. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited about tying up the next one. I'm getting it off my plate. Or at least off my plate for the actual, like, rewrite of the ending. There will still be editing, and in fact this morning I had some thoughts about the editing that I was jotting down and putting in my pile of sticky notes, because, you know, sticky notes are how I roll. There are writers who use spreadsheets. I am not that writer. Instead, as I am going through the book, and some writers will just take notes in the text, and they'll put, like, a series of letters that they only use to indicate that there's a note. And that way when they can just search the document for that, like, TK or whatever, you know, they'll choose a series of letters, otherwise it doesn't really occur. But that didn't really work for me very well. I was dissatisfied with that. So I went back to my my old thing, which is when I'm writing a scene or editing a scene, if I have a thought for something that needs to be addressed that's going to take, like, more time or a different focus than I'm in right now, I just stick it on a sticky note and slap it down in the pile of sticky notes. And then at the end, I go back through my sticky notes and put them in order, chronology-wise, of the book, and then I work through it. Work through it as I go through for an edit. So... Alright, so we're bringing this base coat, this half and half Osirian sand and bogger green, and essentially leaving some of the other color in the shadows. But yeah, I'm actually still messing around with Amazon advertising a little bit. The US market is frustrating because it's so oversold, right? There's so many writers battling for the eyeballs of people in the US Kindle space. But weirdly, I'm getting more traction in the UK because I decided, even though they say, you know, they actually advise you not to do this, but at the same time, there are people who have said that it's much easier to advertise in non-US markets because they're not as glutted. So I started advertising in the UK just as a kind of a why not. And I've actually gotten more traction with my UK ads than the US ads. So now I'm tempted, based on that, I'm actually tempted to start running some ads in Canada and Australia. Especially once book 2 comes out. But yeah, I'm super happy to... Okay, actually, David and I had a disagreement about this yesterday, so I'm going to put it to you guys. So, I'm excited. One of the reasons I was talking to him, and I was like, I'm excited about getting book 2's rewrite done, because then I can start working on book 3, and I can start also working on nonfiction about my fiction. And he's like, what? And I'm like, well, you know, like writing like just additional stuff like the history of the Bear Kings and and just putting that up for free on my website. You know, little things like you'd find in a role-playing game source book for your novel. And he's like, that's not nonfiction, that's fiction. I'm like, no, that's nonfiction about fiction. And he's like, no, it isn't. And so what do you guys think? I think it's nonfiction about a fictional world. But he's like, it doesn't exist. It's not real. How can it be nonfiction? Because then he was like, and then I brought up like things like A World of Ice and Fire, you know, like the book that Gurm put out about his world, and like the Star Wars books, right, and things like that, like. Yeah, see, I feel very strongly that it's not, because the style it's written in is not fiction. It does not tell a story. It does not have characters and dialogue. It does not have a story arc. It only tells history or background information about the world. No spoilers either. I'm going to, you know, obviously not going to put spoilers. Only stuff that is already known it from the books, and we'll just build it out from there. But I want to start having kind of an archive of stuff like this, because there's going to be a lot eventually. If I write as many books in this series as I want to, there's going to be a lot. Yeah, that's true, Agent Marvel. But I wonder how it's actually classed. So now I've got to look up a world. Because David was like, well, there's like books about the Star Wars universe, and they class those as nonfiction, but that's because they draw comparisons with the real world. And I'm like, oh, so all I need to do is draw comparisons with the real world in order to make my nonfiction nonfiction? And then he was like, oh, and I was like, uh-huh. So I'm going to look this up. I want to see. How do you class it? World of, I think it's called A World of Ice and Fire. Yeah. Untold Story of Westeros. I want to go to the print version. Alrighty. Yeah, it may be classed as fiction, weirdly. Let's see. Where does it say? Oh, here we go. Yeah, it does say fiction. Damn, come on. Throw me a bone here. Although this is written very like that. So I bet that's, okay, so this is written, he's written it as if like scribes are talking about it, right? So then... Yeah, those probably count as art books, Pendrake. I probably would call those art books. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it's nonfiction about my fiction. Dang it, I'm gonna die on this hill. I don't mind being wrong, but I also don't mind making my own reality. Yeah, one thing I kind of wanted to do also is get some more art done. Like when I do those things, I kind of like to get some artwork done for my website. Oh, good, Fancy. Yeah, sweet. A token bestiary. See, that's weird. I'm Mothway. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a fine line there, but then I guess also one thing that you have to consider is the fact that even nonfiction these days, the most popular form of it is narrative nonfiction, which tells the nonfiction like a story. So I think the lines are pretty blurry on this. Pretty blurry. So we're mixing up a new color. So I am Althway. I assume you're an Eldar player. I also have Eldar, although I did General Craft World. And I put those on hold because now Tyranids are coming out, and I love Tyranids. Like, I've loved Tyranids so much that I've honestly not been getting to sleep at night thinking about the color scheme for my Tyranids, guys. This is so nerdy. It's ridiculously nerdy. So nerdy. Yeah, it's true, Deborah. I know, but it's pseudo-fiction, or pseudo-nonfiction. Pseudo-nonfiction. I don't know. I feel like it's a blurry line, that's all. I'm just saying, dang it. Well, I'm gonna call it writing nonfiction about my fiction, so. But I need to do some of that. Because I do want to flesh out my world. And I was listening to an interview with that epic fantasy, indie writer who does epic fantasy in the style of like Brandon Sanderson and George R.R. Martin and such. And he was talking about like the fact that he puts a lot of that kind of resources on his website. And I was like, oh yeah, I would like to do that. That's right. That was kind of one of my goals in the early days before I got totally like blown over by 2 novels that needed tons of rewriting. You look down at the, it'll tell you indirectly at the bottom. Oh, I closed it. But at the, like toward the bottom of the listing after the description, Pendrake, it'll give you like the ASIN number and the ISBN number, the number of pages. It'll just be a little block of text. But toward the bottom of that, it'll have the categories that the book is in, and it'll either be in fiction categories or nonfiction. Oh, Kuranico! Those people have no imagination. Oh, okay. Oh, well, that's cool. Yay, Pendragon. I love Arthurian. I love folklore in general, so you're all cool here. And Tolkien Elvish is cool too. Yeah, that's the one part. I think I could never be like if doing languages is a necessary part of being a real quote unquote real epic fantasy writer. I don't know that I could be a real epic fantasy writer. I used to be into that as a kid, but as an adult, I'm not sure. Like, I love epic fantasy. I love reading it. It is a genre I have thought about writing in. I even have an old set of books that I started, and I have a world that I started developing a long time ago. Like, we're talking in the 90s. I developed it and turned it into a D&D world for a while. because actually making it a part of my D&D game actually made me work on it, right? Because you have to flesh out stuff for your players. But I don't know. I mean, technically, the Bear Kings is epic fantasy, but it's a different sort of epic fantasy. Yes, better an abomination than unpainted. But I don't consider glittery nids on... I mean, glittery nids are just one step from color shift nids, and I think color shift nids are absolutely appropriate. And even now, I am considering doing a tiny bit of color shift on my nid carapaces. At least the ones that I'm not considering entering in Golden Demon. They'll just have to get color shifted after the fact. All right, so we're getting that built up. I'm adding in this warm highlight so you can see my colors. These are almost a white. It's almost a linen white. Yeah, and they're not too hard to paint. Books is like a general category, but there should also be genre categories underneath that, like nonfiction about dogs, you know, things like that. So right under that bestseller rank, there should be categories, Pendrake. I need to get my shadow color and keep it wet here. Right, exactly. If we could all paint like Kaha. I could paint like Kaha, but I don't... it's not my style. Not my style. It's neat, though. Super neat. But yeah, the swirly kind of thing she does is really fun. She likes Tyranids too, I think. But yeah, the general consensus seems to be that NIDS are not competitive subjects because it's hard to do a top-notch job on them, but I have to argue with that. I think that's not entirely true. I would like to prove that wrong. Let's just say that. Challenge accepted. Not categorized. Interesting. Yeah, you can do both, right? I mean, there are limits as to the fancy paint job. Obviously, you can't do crazy freehand and stuff, but it seems like Games Workshop US is not rewarding crazy freehand, and so I'd feel like taking on Tyranids for Adepticon Golden Demon isn't as much of a detriment as it might otherwise be. So there's a little bit of trim down here on the bottom of these, but I'm going to highlight as if that trim does not exist, and then I'll come back and pick it up. Oh, I'm just giving my Space Marines to David. He wants the Terminators. He'll do something with them for Golden Demon. He actually is tempted to do some Ultramarine stuff, so... Oh, nice. Oh, yeah, fancy. Yeah. Well, the most you can do is ask, and if he's like, nope, then okay. Although if they get enough requests, maybe they'll put it up for sale on my mini factory or something. Or you could offer him some cash, you know. Or ask him if he would print a copy for you if he's afraid of the STL getting out into the world. I'm going to do a little bit of more of a highlight at the bottom here. Obviously, some of this will be trim again, but I can still bring the bottom folds together a little bit more. Neat. Atlas and Fantasy. So that's interesting. If it's in Atlases and it's in Fantasy, that would make an argument for my my nonfiction fiction, or my fictional nonfiction. But yeah, David actually enjoys painting Space Marines because he's weird. Although he like me is attracted to Space Wolves, and so, but it's harder to convert some of that stuff to Spec Wolves unless you've got wolf bits. And I don't. Sadly, I got rid of all my wolf bits, or I could have just tossed him a bunch. Used to have a ton of wolf bits. But a lot of that stuff went the way of the dodo when I moved. It was given to other people. Because I was already overloading everything I had. So he's crab. Coconut crab. That's what Kroniko said, right? Coconut crab color scheme. Let's look that up. It could be fun. I want to look up a coconut crab. I ate crab last night. Oh. Don't allow, please. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, those are gigantic. Holy crap! That is monster fuel right there. Monster fuel. Okay, so they've got some blues and purple, like dark blue, coming in. Yeah. Yeah, you could do Tyranids like that. Oh, there's one with a lot of blue and purple. History of Middle Earth is... Yeah, a history would be right, because it's fictional history at that point, I guess. I don't know, yeah. Crabs have evolved 5 different times, huh? Let's not have them evolve to be our crabby overlords, please. At Nobu last night, I finally... They'd been out of it before, but I finally got to have the tempura king crab leg segments. They were tasty. They were tasty. We had some very, very tasty salmon sashimi in miso mustard sauce, which was actually fantastic. And what else do we have? Oh, we did the prime fillet on heated ceramic plate with... that had a sauce that was really good. And it had to be soy ginger something. But it was super tasty. Yeah, I remember the can of Old Bay. We already have crabby overlords. I think people everywhere have crabby overlords. It's not just limited to the U.S. It's funny. Oh. Yes. Yeah, but if the first alien race we meet, it looks like that giant coconut crab trying to open the trash can. I'm done. I can't. I just can't. I would be running away from that sucker. Those pinchers are too big for my comfort. I already have a problem with attack geese and their pinchy beaks. The crustaceans of doom have returned. Hello, War Master. We're talking Tyranid color schemes, slightly, a little bit of 40k mixed in. My 40k is coming Saturday. I already warned David because we have a board game day. And I will not be streaming this Saturday, guys, just so you know. That's been confirmed. Our board game day starts at 2 p.m. here, so that would normally be in my middle of my stream, so I will not be streaming myself on my own channel on Saturday. But I already warned David that, you know, if my box of 40k comes like before we go to game day, I am hauling it along because I want to play with it. I'm going to want to play with it, and I'm not going to want to wait. David has a very old college friend, like from his first college math club. 3 of the guys, it was on his college math team. This guy was, and then another guy, and they're all like, now they all work out here. So it's very old college friends of his that he's still in touch with. Oh yeah. Well, good luck in that, War Master. I hope you're able to find what you want. Battletech's fun. I used to play Battletech in college. But yeah, I don't know what they'll be playing. They play a whole bunch of different stuff for board games, Chibi, so I don't know what they will be playing. And perhaps if it is enticing enough, it will entice me to not sit there opening my 40K. It'll have to be pretty darn enticing, though. So I'm not too, especially if I make the hair. So at this point, oh, yes, but rip, it doesn't exist anymore. Although you can make that. Do you want to know how to make Rusty Red, Quindy? Mix 2 parts, I would say 2 parts, maybe 3 parts clear red to 1 drop of oxide red. It'll get close. It'll get you close. Ah. Yeah, it must be a challenge getting some of that stuff out there. Challenge to be a miniatures enthusiast. No problem, Quindy. All right, let's get this highlight up here. So yeah, as I'm painting, I am more and more thinking about his hair color. With this white, I have a couple options. I could go with a blonde. I could go with a muted red up here. A muted red would act well with everything else, but wouldn't really attract the eye. Because at this point, I've got these pops of bright white. When we did Lizette as a wood elf, we did make her hair a near white, and it did work. So I am thinking about that, because I could go again with that greenish white for wood elf, and essentially pull that white up here and then repeat it. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility. This is why I sometimes wait with hair colors, because once I've got everything else in, I'm going to kind of go, well, what do I need, right? Like, how is my color balance right now? If I had decided on his hair color before I mapped out my color composition on everything else, then I wouldn't have that option. Like, I'd have to work around the hair color instead of the other way, and then this off-white may have been too much. Sales Slayer. It's always, when Ed was doing cancellations, it was purely sales. I sometimes in the past was able to step in and say, no, we need these colors. That's actually why the clear brights still exist, because at the beginning, nobody understood what pure pigment paints were for, and they didn't sell very well, because they didn't have the coverage that people were used to. So I essentially stepped in and saved the clear brights over a couple of different cancellation cycles at the beginning. And then we went a long time without canceling anything. And then people essentially, then they realized what the clears were for. And so now they sell decently. But in the end, it is always purely sales. When you look at the paint line with Reaper anyway, because remember, Reaper's run by accountants. They're going to look at the business side. So they're going to look at the sales numbers for a couple of years, or at least this past year, 12 months full of all of the colors. And they're going to want to ding all the stuff that is really low. So yeah, that's another one that's actually easy to mix, if you didn't know. The garnet red. But yeah, it's always, with Reaper is always the bottom line. With it's purely, if it isn't selling, ditch it and make a new version, or turn it into something, take that opportunity to do a different color. cancellations did allow me to improve on colors in the past. Probably the best example of it, although both are now canceled, was then we first put out the terracotta colors, and then I revised those into the redstone colors. And the redstone colors were definitely more popular than the terracotta and more useful, just in general. I liked to use them for like Hellborn skin tones and stuff like that. All right, let's actually get some highlights on the leafy green. I want to see how far up and down I can push it. Yes, buy moth green or Quindy will come to your house. Yeah, deep red and blood red mix. Yep. Yeah, so the terracotta triad, although it was very much looked like terracotta, was a little bit too pinky for people. And once I made it, I warmed it up and added more yellow and created the redstone triad instead. People liked that a lot more. So that's an example of how cancellation works well. Like when you do an iterate, you can iterate, right? You can iterate on colors. And perhaps create something that's more useful. So let's get this lovely, lovely leaf bud green out. And we will, I missed a part like right here. Oh, and I need, I want to build a liner. I think I'm going to mix brown liner and jungle moss to build a greenish liner. Because, of course, we are at that point, aren't we? We're at that point where Anne goes, I want a liner. So I'm going to do kind of I'll probably do a 2 brown liner, 1 jungle moss mix. I'm going to be able to do 3. 3 brown liner because I'm, my throat is turning on. All right, hold on, let me close the window. Allergies. Whenever I get that itch in the back of my throat, there's something in the air trying to kill me here. Okay, close the window. Yeah, because I like to work with a mixture of at least 4 drops of paint in these wells. So, actually I'm going to do 5. I'm going to do 3 and 2. I gotta mix up some. There. All right. So now we've got these colors. This is the liner and jungle moss mix. Then just straight jungle moss, straight leaf bud, so that I can work on the next section. Yeah. And happily black indigo is still in the line because Kickstarter paint. So if you thin down black indigo, it'll get close to Death Knight. It's just, you don't have that transparent black pigment in there is the thing. 1 second. Death Knight Black really had that, has that transparency that comes from that pigment. My skin is really dry today. There we go. But yeah, so that's the one thing you lose with the various liner paints is like if you like that transparency, you're gonna lose it when those colors go out of print. There we go. Yeah. All right, much better. But yeah, the more you learn to mix, the less you get concerned so much. Unless it's a color that you're using directly, like for an army color where you just don't want to mix it over and over again. And some colors are a real pain to mix. Like Leaf Bud, this color is actually kind of a pain to mix, and so is Orchid Purple. One of my favorites. So like I need to order like 15 bottles of this. All right, let's mix up this liner. Okay, it's not enough green in there. The brown liner actually overwhelmed it a bit. So I'm going to grab my jungle moss and go 3 to 3. I want it just a little more green. All right, now I've got kind of a, kind of see a brown-green. So it's a very dark green liner. And you can do that with the liners. You can mix, you know, if you wanted a purple liner, you just have to add a little bit of a red to your, or a reddish purple to your brown liner or blue liner, depending on what you were looking for. All right, let's see here. I had to help the paint department with a formulation just the other day. It's rare that I have to, it's rare that they ask questions, but. Haha. 21. Oh man, when the sad thing was, Miniatures done, when I turned 21, I was actually an abstainer. I was a non-drinker. So I didn't even really get to, like, you know, like experience 21. I didn't really drink till I was 25 or 26. I didn't like the taste of alcohol. And now, of course, you know, with my health stuff, I've gone back to not drinking. I have a sip of, like, when David orders an interesting cocktail, I'll have a sip of it, but that's about it. But yeah, I don't mind aging, you know. I gotta say it, Luca. I don't mind it. I'm in my, I mentioned earlier, my mom's philosophy. She's in her 70s now, and she is, her philosophy is that the older you get, the more stuff you get to get yourself for your birthday. So the more days of birthday you get. So I'm all about that. Red Dragon Scales, yeah. Painting 4 dragons would drive you to drinking. It's true. Oh, well, that's probably better for you, Kerniko. Yeah, I really don't miss it. Like, I realized after I stopped drinking that I'm generally, like, more productive. Like, stopping actually gave me more brain cells back for working on stuff like my writing, so, which are important to me. So, because I would lose a lot of evenings. Just because it was easier to, you know, if you're having a beer, you just sit down, maybe you sit down with a book and then you lose it, you lose track of time. And I can still do that even without drinking, but drinking made it easier. So I actually have a lot more productive time in the evening now for painting and other stuff. Instead of carousing. Twitch Summer In, wow. Or Twitch Summer Lynn. Thank you. Thank you for the gifted sub. Yeah, except for, like, wholesome addictions, like painting. Like, you're all permitted to be addicted to this hobby. It's all good. I mean, don't go overboard or anything. Don't start, like, assaulting people for pocket money to buy Tyranids. But, but I hereby give you permission to be addicted to miniature painting. Miniatures done. And yarn, I can quit anytime. I was very restrained yesterday. I could have gone to both the bird store, the wild bird store, and the yarn store. But I've learned the trick. I've applied the trick that I learned for miniatures, Kerniko. Which is, if I buy it, but then right away I put it away and don't look at it all the time, it's like it's new again. So, like, when I get a new miniature that I really like, but I know I'm not going to work on right away, I'll look at it and enjoy it, but then I'll put it away. And by the time I remember I have it, or in my case with knitting, by the time I'm ready to start a new project next year, it'll be all new again. And I'll be like, so that's how I control my addiction there. Because I could definitely go to the yarn store and blow some money, you know, but I know I'm going to blow more than $100 if I go, and I need to, it's like, no, I need to budget a little better than that. So, yeah, I've learned to just put the yarn away, and then I can go digging in my yarn bag and go, ooh, I forgot I had this. This is so cool. And get all excited about it again. Yeah, it's just practice, right? It's practice with I know me, right? At this point, I know my weaknesses, and I've learned my way around myself. I've learned how to game my own mind. And it's just useful. Like, putting some time into figuring out how to game your own mind is so useful for so many things. Yeah. Yeah, right? Every time you go through your box, or boxes, in my case, yeah, you find minis that you've forgotten you had and you get all excited about them again. Yeah. It's like Christmas. Yeah, so I do that. So last time I went to the yarn store, I bought some really nice yarn. I also ordered some really nice yarn from a lady in Canada. But except for the project that I'm immediately working on, all that yarn goes and sits in my yarn bag, my yarn holder. And I just don't see it because it's out of sight, out of mind. And then when I feel like I need a new yarn fix or I want to get excited about a new project, I go and look at the yarn bag and go, oh. But yeah, first I'm not quite done. I'm not quite done with my cowl yet, but it's getting really close. My turquoise one that I'm knitting. My first real knit project that has minimal mistakes, I guess. No memory of buying. Oh yeah, I've done that. I've bought something impulse at, like, say, a con and totally forgotten that I bought it. Oh, absolutely. And then in the rush of the con, it just goes in the box with other boxes and then it just doesn't emerge. Yeah, I've been there. Not remembering that I bought the thing results in buying multiple copies. Yeah. With paint, that's totally true. Although these days, I put it kind of gotten a handle on my paint collection too, so. But yeah, learning how to game your own brain, how to hack your own brain, just so useful. I think all the dieting I tried back in the day helped learn what works with my addictions and what doesn't. Out of sight, out of mind definitely works, though. Like, if I don't want to eat chocolate, I take the chocolate and put it where I won't see it right away. And then I usually don't eat it. And then, of course, like, the whole health thing where I, went through multiple surgeries and I had to change my diet a lot. That, I hate to say it, but it is pretty good practice for just to know I can't do this or have this anymore. And just getting over it. Like, no, I can't drink anymore. I just got over it. So that sad as that is, that did actually help in some ways. 2 boxes of MacGyver DVDs. But you could eBay one of those. Or gift it to a friend who also likes MacGyver. All right, so I shaded the inside of that sleeve, and now that all stands out better. So lining is, again, a nice tool on 28s, especially to pick things out. You don't always need it. On bigger models, you can just use natural shading and highlighting and color choice to accentuate where one area meets another. And you can, of course, do that still on 28s as well. But when you have a lighter area meeting a lighter area, having that dark line in there or dark shadow does help. There are lots of ways to get around this if you want to take the time to just introduce greater contrast like in your actual color choices, and then you don't have to utilize lining or not as much. But in general, to bring details out, it's a good idea. I find in 28 anyway. Oh, there we go. Yeah, my cousins when I was younger loved MacGyver. There was they had three. One of my uncles and aunts had 3 girls, and they would just sit and watch MacGyver. I liked MacGyver too, but I was never obsessed. But then again, TV was not my thing when I was a kid. I was always reading. All right, I need to figure out what color these boots are. I need to determine if it's time to start introducing some browns. Because what else, right? We could totally not do brown. We could go with a black or a dark gray. Or a reddish brown. Just still feeling my way through the color scheme on this one. Yeah, neutral good. Yeah. Oh, nice, Sappo. Yes, Reaper has a Twitch, and I personally am here pretty much every weekday. Unless there's a holiday or I'm on a trip. So, hi, I'm Anne. I was Reaper's staff painter. I created the Master Series paint line for Reaper. I worked at their headquarters for 17 years, and then I moved out here to be with my now husband, out here being the West Coast, and so now I just do part-time work for Reaper, and I do this stream. I am, in fact, Reaper's first remote employee. So, yeah. If you have any questions about the paint line, I am your person. Questions about paint in general. My background is in, obviously, I learned just enough paint chemistry to make myself dangerous while I was creating the paint line, so I can usually tell you the actual why if something works or not when it comes to painting. And I like that. I like talking about the why. I'm good. Hey, McBoots. Yeah. Well, if you're a friend of Luca's, you're a friend of ours. We have a high regard for Luca here, except when he says things that make Quindy want to kick him out of the chat, which is always. Yes, you can also check out, 15 years ago. Wow, Sappo. Well, hi again. Yeah, so now I'm out here in California. But yeah, I'm still... I can't speak to, when it comes to brand new colors from Reaper. I can answer general questions, but I don't, know the formulas or anything. But everything else, all the old colors, I can answer questions about. And in general, how the paint works or how other paint lines work. Stuff like that. Okay, have fun at your meeting, Crowley. Always and forever, you even want to kick him out of his own chat. Oh, yep. Yeah, we did Paint Club. For years we did Paint Club, Sappo. For years. Yeah, now I think Reaper still does Paint Club, it's just I'm not there. Although, of course, Paint Club got shut down for a while during the pandemic, along with everything else. But yeah, welcome back to the hobby. Yeah, and that's another thing. Quindy just dropped the link to our Reaper Discord in the chat. So if you want to go and share pics and ask questions and chat with other painters who are into Reaper, that's a great place to go. I was doing a bit of lining now to kind of set things out from each other here because I mixed up this green liner by mixing some brown liner and some of my jungle moss color that I'm using on the model's cloak. To kind of make a custom liner for this model. There. Now we'll get to this green and see what I can do with the leaf bud green. The challenge with the leaf bud green is that we don't want to darken or mute it out too much, and we also don't want it to pop up too light because we don't want it to really conflict with our white that's right around it. So we do want to shade and highlight. Right now, looking at this, what we don't have in the middle here is dark, so I think I'm going to go a little bit darker and concentrate more on the shadows with it than the highlights. So you've got two options, right? If you need more contrast in your shading and highlighting, you can either go darker with the shadows or higher than with the highlights, or you can do both. And you can also shade and highlight with an eye toward what the actual surface is like, because a duller surface wouldn't actually receive as many highlights. Going bright with your highlights usually suggests a shinier surface. Although with 28mm, there's a lot of wiggle room on this, just because your main goal is to bring out the details on the model more than to suggest the qualities of the surfaces. So there's a couple of different thought scales on 28s, because the scale means that the model doesn't cast natural shadows itself. It's not big enough to. So we have to do a certain amount of doctoring and suggesting and accentuating. Whereas with bigger models like 54mm, 72mm, or busts, they cast natural shadows. You don't have to exaggerate your highlights and shadows quite as much to get everything to show up. Oh, both days now. 2 days of paint club. You guys have a plethora of paint club. So I'm just blocking in some shadows here, and I'll bring in my leaf bud green to bring it back up. I'm just kind of doing this one section here to get a feel for how dark I want to go and how much I want to influence this leaf bud green. As I shade it and highlight it, the color will become less intense, so I need to remember that and decide if that's something I care about. Got a little bit more shading here underneath this arm because the shadow would fall there. So I'm mostly concentrating my brighter green highlights on the front here. And I'm going to mix a highlight for this, but I'm actually not going to mix, in here we went with kind of a gray-green. But here I'm going to just go with our kind of off yellow white, which is Osirian sand plus white. So that should give me a slightly different feel for this green highlight. So that hopefully will help to separate it out in appearance from the white. So I'm using like the same four greens. Here is my transition. The 9082 is Jungle Moss. That's the dark green. It's the cloak color. The Leaf Bud green is a Kickstarter color, and that's that brighter green. And then Boggard green is this gray green that I used to mix the base for the off-white. And then Osirian Sand is the yellow color, the really pale yellow that I am using for highlighting in general. And we are just applying these in various places. And mostly I'm just blocking it in here on this side to see. I don't want to go too much lighter because, again, although I do have a line here, you got my lining right down there to separate these two things, I don't want them to get too close to each other. So I'm more likely to intensify shadows on the screen than I am to bust up highlights. The darker my shadows go, the lighter the highlights will look anyway. But I just need to keep these colors separate from each other visually. So I want you to be able to see, even like way back, if I zoom out, I need to be able to see that those are separate areas. And I can still, so that's good. Once I put these belts and details in, that's going to help a bit too. But I got to watch that. I got to watch how light I take that area and the highlights here. But I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm going to go and hit the rest of the green, the medium green areas with that. There aren't that many. I'll probably have to repeat this leafy color in different places. Although I'll likely go... I'm thinking also about accent colors too and what I want to do. Could go with the reddish purple or red for some of the accents. But I'll have to think. There aren't a lot of places on this model for accents. Like there's a little bit of hilt. And there's this scabbard. There's the straps here. And the handle here. And there's like, we saw his hair. There's the feathers on the arrows. And maybe a little bit of banded color on the bow or the shield. So there are a couple places that I could go with a contrasting color. And we still have not figured out his hair. Although I'm leaning toward an off-white, like this color. Just because I would like to balance out the model, and white, especially lower down, can be distracting if you don't balance it with something light and bright up top. Alrighty. I'm going to build a half leaf bud, half jungle moss mix real quick, just by using the puddles I already have on my palette. Actually, I'll just start with a little bit of jungle moss. Because the thing is that leaf bud is pretty weak. So if I do a 2-to-1 with leaf bud to jungle moss, I actually end up with a nice color for first shadow. And then there's the second. Yeah, I've done it before with Lizette, who was also a wood elf. She had a lot darker skin tone than this guy does. It's totally doable. The hair on this guy is actually pretty well sculpted. I like it. I think that sculptors are getting better and better at making more natural looking hair that's 3D sculpted. Pretty challenging is what the sculptors have said to me in the past, that doing hair with ZBrush and trying to make it look natural can be difficult. This is the way the 3D sculpting works. Putting in some shadows down here and a little bit under here. I want to keep that pop of bright green there, but I want to get the folds. Valentine. I did think about a really pale blonde Agent Marvel. I thought about that. I thought about just going red. I think I'm not going to go red. My brain just says it won't work. Sometimes you just gotta, my gut is kind of like meh on it. I think I'd rather go reddish with the leather. I might go reddish with the leather and red purple, like a reddish purple, for accents. I think I might be able to do that, and then go with a blue black for some of the leather. Go reddish leather here, maybe a reddish wood for the back here. Because I did do nut brown and saddle brown also, which are reddish and purplish. So I can consider doing that, and then the boots I would maybe go black, and maybe the straps would go black, but other stuff would go, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. Yeah. It's just hard to it gets you can have that horrible ropey texture or then you can have not enough. Although I prefer not enough texture because I would rather be able to paint the strands. with more freedom. This is a good kind of compromise, the way the hair is done on this figure. All right, we are about time to end. So I'm just going to stuff some shading into these areas and we can wrap it up since I started late. We'll end a little late. Apologies again. I always find it hard to like get back in the focus after a day off. A little bit of shading here. But yeah, so we will finish up this little bit and then we will is it Reaperland is not on tonight. Am I correct on that? Is it an every other week thing now, Quindy? Off week. Oh, off week for Reaper Live. Sorry. Reaperland is Friday. Reaper Live is Thursday. Got it. I did look at the latest Reaper Kickstarter update, and I was gratified to see that, like, I think the Gnolls and Lizardmen are going to be in Bones USA. Which means we'll probably do at least one or two of those on stream once they're out. I don't think I pre-ordered them. Because I just... I'm not interested unless the models are in Bones USA these days. Like, I'm much more interested in doing Bones USA or the 3D print. Because I like the detail on them. Unless it's a big monster like the Sphinx was, where regular Bones is just fine. Alrighty, I think we're pretty good there, at least for these bottom parts. We still need to obviously hit the top part, but you can see even that bringing up the highlight even this much off of that shadow does make it look like the cloth is a little bit shiny, but that's all right. I can go with that. If I don't like it, I can always bring it down a little bit more. So, base boss. Nice. Good. So that's where we're ending, and I didn't get to any of this stuff. So I'm going to swatch out these colors real quick here to the cloth shadow. So that my card has a clue, and then this is actually the color of the liner, which is the Brown Liner Plus. And I'm going to mark those in. So I don't often mix custom liners, but I decided to do it here. Oh, Kiki's playing. I hear her. She's like, hey, plus brown liner. So I do this so I can remember when I'm using colors that I don't normally use. And I don't have default mixes in my head. Cloth shadow. 1-to-1-ish. Jungle Moss Leaf Bud. Alrighty. So now I've got those factored in. And I should do I'll remember the white probably. Yeah, and I won't necessarily, I guess I can do a little bit of a swatch. Swatch. 1 sec. Yeah, I do. So the ones that we've done are like we have done. I try not to go bigger than this. So we did like the elemental scions, this guy and Genie. Although this guy is the guy that we finished, Fishy. And then the other one, and I did a Sphinx that got given to Julie. And I did Rock Troll, who I decided to keep. Here's Rock Troll. He's super dramatic. I did him with the super dramatic paint job. So really accentuating the shadows and the lighting. Because he's just a really good candidate for that because of his slouched over build. So he was really good for this kind of dramatic, plus over muscled. Really accentuated muscles always make it easier to do. And then I have done, still haven't finished Wyvern. Wyvern is his basing was being developed. So that's the Wyvern that we did. It was fun. It's good stuff. Closest thing I've come to a dragon probably on stream. I'll probably finish his basing for Ron for this year. And likewise, I didn't finish the basing on Ogre Guy, so we did an Ogre as well. Again, more dramatic lighting on him and musculature. So yeah, every once in a while I throw a bigger model in. I tend to do more characters because that's what people seem to like. And I also have the chance of getting bored or not liking bigger models. I almost forgot. Yeah, this guy too. The bronze golem. But the problem with working on big models like this, Slayer, is that they get boring. You're doing the same thing over so much of the mini that it gets so repetitive, and then people stop watching, and that's the problem. But I really like how some of these guys turned out, but they took a lot of streams. They took a long time. Whereas with character models, they don't take as long. I can cover more topics, more different colors, stuff like that. But all the streams for those big models are still on our YouTube. So like if you want to look up any of that, yeah. Yeah, I did verdigris. It's actually shaded metallics. Yes, Kiki, I know. Kiki's like, hey! But it is actually shaded metallics, so it's not an MM. So the verdigris is on the shaded metallics. But yeah. And he was cool. He just took way forever. He just took way forever. But yeah. So my puppy is whining because she wants her walk. So we should all humor the Kiki. Humor the Keeks. It's Keeks time. And tomorrow for Friday, we will be back on Ye Old Mouseling. So we've gotten his hat coming pretty close now. We're still working on the texture on the back, but it's getting there. It's just got a little bit more work to do. So we'll finish out the texture on that, and then I will either do the belt and boots tomorrow, or I'll start work on the blue if I feel like it. But yeah, on Reaper's YouTube, you can go and look up these models and just watch the whole series. So yeah, so we're back to Mousy. Mousy. Grr. Mouse Van Mouseling. Van Helsing Mouseling? I don't know. This guy. All right. Yes. Thank you for attending, everybody. All right. We will cap it now. Show up tomorrow or else, says Van Helsing Mousing. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great one. Bye-bye.